There comes a moment in life when you understand something most people learn too late. Respect is not something you beg for. It is not something you chase, negotiate, or repeatedly explain why you deserve. Respect is the minimum condition for any healthy relationship, any honest conversation, and any meaningful connection. And when it is absent, insisting does not make you stronger. It only keeps you standing in a place that was never built to protect your peace. Many people believe strength means staying. They believe strength means arguing longer, explaining better, proving more, and enduring more. They think that if they can just find the right words, the other person will finally understand. But life teaches a harder truth. Some people do not misunderstand you. They understand perfectly. They simply do not value what you are saying enough to care. That changes everything. Because when someone refuses to respect you, the problem is no longer communication. The problem is not clarity. The problem is not your tone, your logic, or your patience. The problem is that you are trying to build something meaningful in a place where the foundation is already broken. And the longer you stay there, the more it costs you. At first, the cost feels small, a little frustration, a restless mind, a conversation that keeps replaying in your head at night. But slowly, it becomes something heavier. Your emotional energy becomes tied to proving yourself. Your attention becomes trapped inside battles that lead nowhere. And that is how people lose balance. Not all losses are visible. Sometimes you lose sleep. Sometimes you lose focus. Sometimes you lose the quiet confidence that once made you feel grounded. Sometimes you lose yourself while trying to be understood by someone who was never listening. That is why some battles are not won by confronting. They are won by leaving at the right time. Walking away is often misunderstood. People call it weakness because they confuse noise with strength. They think power always looks loud. They imagine strength as raised voices, perfect arguments, and the last word. But real strength often looks very different. Real strength is knowing when not to enter the fight. Real strength is standing in front of disrespect and understanding that your value does not decrease because someone fails to recognize it. Real strength is refusing to hand your peace over to someone who has not earned access to it. There is a quiet power in restraint. Responding to everything is not emotional maturity. Often, it is emotional dependence disguised as character. It can become necessary to defend yourself every time someone misunderstands you. The need to explain every decision, the need to correct every unfair opinion, the need to answer every attack. But not everything deserves your response. Not every comment deserves your energy. Not every misunderstanding deserves your explanation. Not every insult deserves your attention. There are moments when silence says more than any speech ever could. Silence is often misunderstood for weakness because people assume that if you don't react, you must have nothing to say. But that is not always true. Sometimes silence is not a lack of words. Sometimes it is clarity so complete that no explanation is necessary. Silence can be the moment when you recognize what is happening and decide not to participate. And that decision can save you from emotional traps that consume years of life. Because drama has a way of pulling people in. It creates urgency. It creates heat. It makes every moment feel important. It convinces you that if you just keep talking, keep defending, because what you repeatedly tolerate eventually shapes the life you live. It teaches people how to treat you. It teaches your mind what to accept. It teaches your heart what to expect. And once that pattern becomes familiar, even peace can begin to feel strange. That is why boundaries matter. Not because you want control over others, but because you need responsibility over yourself. A boundary is not an attempt to change someone else. It is a decision about what you will and will not continue participating in. That changes everything. You stop asking people to become different. You start becoming clearer about what you allow. And sometimes the strongest response is not what you say. It is what you stop permitting. You stop returning to conversations that only wound. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop chasing validation from people who have already decided not to give it. You stop fighting for spaces that consistently ask you to shrink. That is not giving up. That is growing up. There is a maturity that arrives when you no longer feel the need to win every argument, because you begin to understand something deeper. Winning the wrong battle can still cost you everything that matters. You can win the argument and lose your peace. You can prove your point and lose your energy. You can have the final word and still carry the emotional weight for days. That is not victory. Real victory is protecting what keeps you whole, your balance, your dignity, your emotional clarity, your inner peace. And sometimes that victory happens quietly. No dramatic exit, no speech, no revenge. No explanation is designed to make someone finally understand. Just distance, just calm, just the quiet decision that you will no longer place yourself where respect is absent. That kind of departure speaks loudly without making a sound, because when you leave without chaos, without unnecessary explanation, without trying to force closure, you communicate something powerful. You know what you are worth, and you are no longer willing to negotiate it. That is one of the most liberating moments in life. The moment when you stop trying to convince people of your value. The moment when you stop trying to earn basic respect. The moment when you realize peace is more valuable than being understood by everyone. Not everyone will agree with your boundaries. Not everyone will understand your silence. Not everyone will like your distance. That is fine. Your responsibility is not to make everyone comfortable. Your responsibility is to remain honest with yourself. And sometimes the most honest thing you can do is leave. Leave the conversation. Leave the pattern. Leave the place where your spirit is slowly being worn down. Because life becomes lighter when you stop carrying what was never yours to carry. And maybe that is the lesson. You do not need to attend every battle you're invited to. You do not need to answer every voice that calls your name. You do not need to stay where your peace is the price of admission. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away. Not in anger, not in fear, not in defeat, but in clarity. And in that clarity, you protect something more valuable than pride. You protect yourself. If you loved this video, make sure to like this and subscribe to this channel for more content like this.